Top of the morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tejo Turner, and today we are going to be talking about listening skills. It is an art, ladies and gentlemen, and listening is not done just with your ears, it's done with your heart, mind, soul, and your ears, of course. We live in a world where it's very difficult to be not okay, right? So it's a world that forces you to be okay 24/7, and the human mind is not wired to be okay 24/7. Most people just want to be listened to. And so let's see if we can master the art of listening over the next couple of minutes. To begin with, why do we need to listen to others? Because listening to others helps others to listen. Listening and acknowledging does not necessarily mean agreeing with somebody else's point of view. It is acknowledging that they have the right to think what they do and express themselves. You need not agree with them. The trick is to engage people, not defeat them. There are a lot of people who have bigger and better stories all the time. For example, you tell them, I've just bought a house, and they'd probably say, oh, that's nothing. I've built two in the last 1 year. So the whole point of listening is to engage people, not to have a bigger and a better story or to have an opinion that is differing. You might have an opinion, but not all the time. Yes? So what do people want? So through the art of listening, what can you do? You can make the other person feel understood, acknowledged, approved, and agreed with. And in short, you can summarize in your own words what the other person has said. So what is listening? What is the definition of listening? Well, in 1996, the International Listening Association said it is the process of receiving, constructing, deriving meaning from, and responding to spoken and or non-verbal messages. There's a very important point being made here. It is equally important to listen to what people are not saying, because language is not the only means of communication. The process of listening involves intent and consent. That means your intention first should be to listen. That means you need to prepare yourself mentally, emotionally, geographically, time-wise, to listen. And then give the listeners a chance to consent. Understand the bigger picture. Help the other get ready for a conversation and understand their role, and refer to their intentions of communication. Now, when you want to be heard or listened to, you need to offer the other the same courtesy too. So, do not try and listen with any presumptions or assumptions in your mind, because you will start filling in the blanks, and that is always a disadvantage. And it does not express what you really want. So what 5 messages should you really look for? What are you sensing? How are you feeling? What are the hopes and needs being expressed at that moment? a commitment that you want? And what results will that commitment lead to? Asking open-ended questions gives the other an opportunity to speak. So you need to ask conscious, creative, and exploratory questions. How better than why? How questions are better than why questions. For example, if you ask another, what do you think about moving the office to Boston? It actually gives them a chance to voice their opinion, as opposed to, is it okay with you if we move? Then that becomes a closed question, right? So the answer could only be yes or no. Or, how ready are you to move to Boston? As opposed to, are you ready to move to Boston? So what would the person probably answer? Yes or no? So where is the scope for a conversation to explore more and to actually listen to what the person is saying? The art of good listening is to focus on learning. Be open to what might come out of the conversation. Develop faith in possibility. Build on your strengths. If you know that you may not be the most patient listener, practice listening without interrupting or without preempting the other person's answer. And be gentle with yourself when you find that you don't do this very well. Keep trying. You will get better at listening as you practice. Here are some tips that could help you along the way. You need to prepare yourself to actually listen to another. And there's no greater gift you can give another than listening with your mind, body, soul. So minimize outside distractions. Make sure that you are well rested and mentally prepared. If you're tired, then it's very likely that you will not be able to give another the kind of time and patience that is required for listening. If you don't understand any terms or you don't understand the language, please ask the other person to clarify or switch to another language. Do not form your own answers before that person has finished. Very often we find people saying, oh, when is he going to stop talking or she going to stop talking? I have so much to say. I already know what I'm going to say. So wait for the other person to finish. And remember, it is about the other person. And don't meander here and there. Stay with the topic. And do not assume that you know what the other person's going to say, even before they state it. Yeah? And words are very powerful, ladies and gentlemen. It's true what they say, you know. There is this poem that says, careful with fire is good advice we know, but careful with words is 10 times doubly so. Because a thought unexpressed may sometimes fall back dead, but even God can't kill them once they're said. So what are some indicators that people are bad listeners? They call the subject uninteresting, and they say, oh, that's boring. They criticize how the person is speaking. You need to look beyond the words to really listen to where they're coming from. They get overstimulated without reason, and they listen only for facts. So Or they swing from one extreme to another. They either take no notes or they note down everything. Well, what are some bad habits of bad listeners? They fake attention. They keep looking at you, they've blanked out. They keep saying, uh-huh, uh-huh. So much so that when the other has asked them a question, such as, how are you? They're still saying, uh-huh. Or they're very distracted. They look here, there, and in the middle of an important conversation, they get up saying, oh, excuse me for a minute. Or they avoid difficult listening material. If they're having a difficult conversation, they'd rather avoid it. Or they let emotions get in the way of the conversation. And they waste the time thought advantage. So what is the time thought advantage? The theory is we listen badly because we are able to think so much faster than we are able to speak. We're able to think at 750 words per minute, but we're able to speak at 175 words per minute. Our minds wander. So, in this gap between thought and speech, we try and guess the speaker's next point, or we identify supporting evidence, or we engage in a mental recap every 4 minutes to reinforce learning or memory. Let's talk about good listeners. Good listeners search, sift, sort, and store information. They concentrate on the message being delivered. They get the main ideas of what is being said. Most importantly, though, they pay attention to the speaker. They make the speaker feel like what he is saying is of value, and therefore he is of value, the speaker. They obtain principles and ideas and write that down. We spoke about bad listening habits. Now, let's look at some good listening habits. A person who is in control of himself or herself learns to recognize and control emotions. Not just that, they recognize and learn how to control emotions because they are able to preempt the triggers. When I say they exercise listening muscles, remember, it's not just your ears that need to be listening to others. Your whole mind and attention needs to be focused on listening. They eliminate distractions and they take advantage of the time thought differential. Besides listening to others, how do you get others to listen to you? Interestingly, you need to listen more intently, question more, and speak with emotions, not have a deadpan face. The most boring conversations, ladies and gentlemen, revolve around I, me, myself. Look, there's a whole world out there who wants to talk about themselves. So nobody is really interested in an extended story of you or your life. And so what are the topics that you need to avoid? When you are speaking, you need to avoid anything related to politics, religion, or very personal stuff. Engage people with questions such as, what do you think? And think about who you really enjoy being around at work. And what is it about those people that make you want to be there? What is it about those people that make you want to listen to them? Think about it and try and inculcate the same module. Well, there is a behavioral model for listening called the Huria model. Well, that really is an acronym for hearing, understanding, remembering, interpreting, evaluating, and responding. Well, in this model, it is extremely evident that a lot of conversation is contextual. So it becomes very important for you as a listener to understand paralinguistics, to understand that which is beyond language. Right? If you see a person who is crying and you ask them what's wrong and they say nothing, you say, oh, okay, well, you said nothing. Let's go have a cup of tea. Now that is not good listening. Well, obviously something is wrong. So the other person's response of nothing could probably mean, I don't want to talk about it, or I want you to ask me more questions, or any number of other derivations where you need to be able to listen to the finer aspects of it and respond accordingly. On a final note, the principle of listening, someone has said, is to develop a big ear rather than a big mouth. And I'm sure you've heard this many times before, where at the risk of repeating myself, it's true that we've been given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, so we could listen more and speak less. Your assignment will be to listen to the TED Talk in the URL mentioned below and write down in 500 words what you could do personally to improve your listening skills. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for listening. Pun intended. This is Teja Turner signing off.